Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmaracharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Good. Be seated, please. Rameshwara. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahavidyan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very good. Welcome to you all, and this is our first of what I hope will be many more regular classes on Saturday morning. We haven't had these classes for a long time when I was dealing with some minor health issues. Right now, I seem to be feeling better, but we're going to take today's class as a trial and see how it goes, see how I feel afterwards. And right now I'm thinking quite optimistically that this will be an ongoing program, but just make sure you always check our email, the program announcement email, so we'll announce anything that comes up. What we're going to do starting today is a class in a format that I used to use. I don't think I've used this format for more than 10 or 20 years. I used to use it quite often. And it's a format in which we begin with a short topic, and I'll talk about that topic for a while, and then that topic will very naturally lead to a lot of questions that you might have. So the second part of the program will be question-answer, and the way we want to do this, you know that a great number of people watch these videos, so we're going to request that you come up and we'll put the microphone out, and then you can stand at the microphone, and so that that will become part of the class for others to benefit from your questions. So not only is you get an answer to your question, but many others will benefit when you come up here to ask a question. The first topic we'll take up was actually suggested by Vasanti. I asked her, what do you think would be a good first topic? And she quickly said, why don't you talk on Swadharma? Her suggestion. So that is what we'll do. What is Swadharma? It's quite a good topic, and you'll see as we go along. First, everyone, it's a common question. What is my Swadharma? Taking Swadharma, translating it as personal responsibility. And I think that's, for right now, that's an adequate definition, but it's going to get much more complicated in just a moment. So let's just start. Swadharma means personal responsibility. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that his Swadharma is to stay on the battlefield and fight. Under those unusual circumstances, it was a situation in which not fighting the war had far worse consequences than fighting the war. So in that unique circumstance, and also with the whole story of the Mahabharata that led up to that point of the war, it was indeed Arjuna's Swadharma, his personal responsibility to stay on the battlefield and fight. Later, which he tells Arjuna that in the second chapter. Later, Sri Krishna warns Arjuna against paradharma. Paradharma means somebody else's responsibility. So what works for somebody else, what is appropriate for somebody else, may not be appropriate for you. At the end of chapter 1, the beginning of chapter 2, Arjuna was kind of playing with the idea of leaving the battlefield and living the life of a sannyasi. He was entertaining that idea. To do so would be paradharma, which means it would be dharmic for another person, someone like me, but it would not be appropriate for Arjuna. So we can make a distinction between swadharma, personal responsibility, and paradharma, the responsibility of another. Just one more before we get into the topic, one more observation. The scriptures also talk about Samanya dharma and Vishesha dharma. You might not have heard these terms, but they're very important. Samanya means general. So there is such a thing as Samanya dharma, what is generally the right thing to do. But then there's also such a thing as Vishesha dharma. If Samanya dharma is a general responsibility, Vishesha dharma is a very particular responsibility. The best way to say that, Samanya dharma is the general rule, Vishesha dharma is the exception to the rule. There are rules, there are always rules, but there are always exceptions to those rules. Now, to say that a rule has an exception doesn't mean that we ignore the rule. What it means is under exceptional, listen to this very carefully. The general rule is there, Samanya dharma. We'll talk about Samanya dharma and Swadharma in just a moment. But there are such things as exceptional circumstances, and under those exceptional circumstances, Samanya dharma is superseded, so to speak, by Vishesha dharma. The rule and the exception to the rule. This applies in so many areas of life, and it absolutely applies in a very prominent way in determining what is your swadharma, what is your personal responsibility. Okay, that's the simple part. From here it just gets more and more. It's a complicated topic because immediately you think, okay, Swamiji, what personal responsibility, how do I determine what is my personal responsibility? And I have no idea. I can't tell you. I can share with you some teachings that can help you figure it out. But and the teachings about how to figure out how to discern your swadharma. Only you can discern your swadharma. Unless you have Sri Krishna as your charioteer, you can ask him. But if he's not your charioteer right now, then it's up to you to discern what is your swadharma. And there is a scriptural principle which is crucial in helping you discern properly what is your swadharma. And that scriptural principle is the very meaning of dharma. Now, dharma has many meanings. Look it up in the dictionary, you'll find a dozen meanings for dharma. And the use and the meaning of dharma in the expression of swadharma is responsibility. But that's not always the meaning of dharma. Dharma, the word, has many other meanings and in other situations, other circumstances, other contexts. It has different meanings. Here, in the context of living a righteous life, dharma means righteousness. So obviously, whatever you do, your swadharma should absolutely be righteous, dharmic, to use our common expression. But now, what is righteousness? And this is a big topic we've talked about many times. I'll just give you the short form here. We don't have a list of commandments to follow, like some of our Christian and Jewish friends have. So in the Hindu tradition, the basic principle of dharma, righteousness, is ahimsa, non-injury. Ahimsa, paramo, dharma. That expression, ahimsa, is the main principle of dharma. That expression comes 3, 4, 5, I think about 5 times in the Mahabharata. It occurs in Dharma Shastra, it occurs in many other scriptures as well. The main principle that you can apply to determine what is dharma, and therefore what is your swadharma, the main principle then is ahimsa, which you have heard me say before, principle of least harm. And it's important to put it in those terms. It's impossible to live without causing any harm whatsoever, zero harm. Every time you breathe in microbes, some of which will get stuck in your lungs and consumed by your body's immune system. Or you might inhale a bug. By the way, our Jain friends, the monks and nuns, will wear a mask for that reason. And they'll sweep in front of them as they walk so they don't accidentally step on some bug. So the point is that the very act of living is going to cause some injury. When you eat food, you can choose not to eat animals so that you don't kill animals. You're still killing plants. And if you don't kill some plants, what happens to you? You get the point. So the of ahimsa doesn't mean no harm. Can't mean no harm. It means least harm. In the Mahabharata, also the flip side comes. Instead of calling it a principle of least harm, it becomes a principle of the most good. It's the flip side of the same coin. Same thing. To act in such a way that you cause the least harm, conversely, to act in such a way that you do the most good. So this is the principle of dharma from the perspective of righteousness. Obviously, your swadharma has to be an expression of dharma. Just to be silly, obviously your swadharma cannot be himsa, right? Your swadharma is definitely some appropriate expression of ahimsa, causing the least harm, causing the most good. Now it gets even more complicated because every situation is different, and it becomes very complicated to know where you draw the line in terms of what you should do or shouldn't do to avoid harm. Diet is a very good example. You can choose not to eat animals, and still live. So that means it's a pretty obvious line to draw. Unless you are a Tibetan Buddhist monk living up in a monastery at 10,000 feet, where you can't grow any vegetables, food will come to you several times a year over on the back of these ponies, mules, which will carry the food up. But much of the year, these monks will not have access to vegetables and fruits. Their lives up in the mountains are based on yaks. So they will eat yak butter. That becomes a major source of nutrition. They may also eat yak meat. Now, is that righteousness or not? Well, it depends on where you draw that line. You and I aren't living in a monastery at 10,000 feet. So we can draw the line and we can choose, I'm not going to eat yaks, as if it were an option. You get my point. If you happen to be one of those monks living up in the Himalayas, maybe you have to draw your line in a different place. This is where Swadharma becomes really, personal. Personalized. Swadharma is absolutely unique for every single person. This is where we recognize this idea of Samanya dharma is good. What is Samanya dharma is ahimsa, paramo dharma. That's Samanya. As a general principle, do the least harm, do the most good. But there's this Vishesha dharma. So if you're up in this monastery, by the way, somebody asked years ago, just to give a little insight, many years ago somebody asked my guru, Puja Swami Tadatmananda, what about those monks up in the monasteries eating yaks? And he said, yeah, that's why I'm not a Buddhist monk. So it's not only a cute reply, but it shows once again how individualistic Swadharma is. So eating yaks might be okay for those Buddhist monks. It absolutely wasn't okay for my guru. He would not be up there in those monasteries. You get the point. So now, let's look at let's set aside this dietary example and go for some more practical examples. The conflicts. The problem of drawing the line occurs because of, if I can use some modern kind of expression, because of competing interests. What might be in your best interests might not be in the best interest of your family, or society, or your employer, or someone else. So now in determining least harm, now we're up against this problem of competing interests, and where you have competing interests, which is always the case, if you have competing interests, then you have dharma sankata. Almost all of you know that term. Sankata, a conflict with regard to dharma. I'll give a couple of brief examples right now, and then I'll invite some of you to come up and give other examples that you would like to investigate and analyze together. So a very common example would be a married couple. He wants to come to Arsha Bodha Center on Saturday morning for class, and she doesn't. Or vice versa. Very often it's vice versa. She wants to come to Arsha Bodha Center for class, and he doesn't. He wants to stay home and watch football on TV or something, whatever it is. And there's nothing adharmic about staying home and watching nothing appealing to me about it, but anyway, if somebody wants to do it, it's not causing harm, or is it? Is it harmful to stay home and watch football on TV? in some very specific circumstances it might. Like if you have a social obligation, or like if it's so important to your partner that to sit in front of the TV would cause great emotional harm. Which is more important, sitting in front of the TV or avoiding that emotional harm? That's pretty obvious. How about the other one? Is it possible that coming to the ashram might cause harm? Yeah, you can easily imagine situations. So you have another social engagement. There's a wedding you have to attend. Everyone is expecting you. It's important for you to be there and support the newly married couple and to support your whole family. So to choose to come to the ashram and fail to go to the family wedding would be harmful. So this, just to show, in such a simple situation, you can find exceptions. This is Vishesha dharma. In general, coming to the ashram is an excellent thing to do. If we say watching TV, I don't know about, but suppose there were just this World Cup finals, and some people are really into it. If it's really, really, really important, then okay, maybe now and then it's harmless. You get the point. So Vishesha dharma, unique situations require unique responses, do they not? And pretty much every situation we encounter in life is unique, which means the responsibility falls on us to find the uniquely correct path to follow in that unique situation. How about another one? How about at work? At work, your boss asks you to do something which is not strictly dharmic. That may have happened to some of you, where the way a business is conducted is a little ethically loose. Your boss is part of that structure, corporate structure it might be, and at work you have been asked to do something which is not completely ethical in your view. What to do? I have no idea. Depends entirely on the situation. You have to weigh the consequences of whatever your response would be. If your response is to say, okay, boss, what will be the consequences of that? You get some good marks in the boss's books, may contribute to getting a raise or advancement, but what about harm to you as a person? Your ethics have been compromised. And also the fact that it's an unethical action, that means that somebody else is hurt by that unethical whatever it is in the business place. So it's getting more complicated. Then other complications. You need the job. You need to keep a roof over your head. Or you can just go on and on and on. And consider, you can make lists of, you've done this, right? You make a list, plus and minus. And sometimes it seems like for every plus there's a minus, for every minus there's a plus. Dharma sankata. What should you do? You can only do the best you can do. Of course, sometimes it's helpful to seek advice, but ultimately it's up to you. You have to consider the consequences of both options, of all options, and then choose whichever option in your view leads to the least harm for everyone involved or the most good for everyone involved. You have to make that evaluation. If you say, but Swamiji, what happens if I make a choice and I discover it's the wrong choice? That happens a lot. My guru was asked this question. Swamiji, what if we make a wrong choice? And without dropping a beat, he says, well, then you deal with the consequences of your wrong choice and you make a new decision. That's it. If you made a wrong choice, change it. One problem, this is a little bit of a tangent, but maybe it's worth mentioning. Some people have a false sense that sticking with your decisions is the most important thing. Have resolve, and you should. But the American expression, to stick by your guns. What a terrible expression. We're not talking about guns here. Come on. What a gun culture we live in. Terrible. Anyway, no, stick to your guns. Sorry, that's the expression. Stick to your guns. That's really a misleading expression. Some pious Hindus will give the example of Bhishma in the Mahabharata. He rigidly kept to his vows, and the whole of the Mahabharata recounts the terrible harm caused because of his rigidity. If you read the Mahabharata carefully, you'll find that Bhishma is not praised for his rigidity. The Mahabharata shows the terrible consequences of his rigidity, not praise. Read the Mahabharata carefully. It's a complicated story. And there's another good case of Vishesha dharma, exception to the rule. He made 3 vratas, 3 vows to his father. But in his unique circumstances, for the sake of avoiding a horrible war, it would have been more dharmic for him to violate his vows. I won't go into the details, but that's an exception of Vishesha dharma. Samanya dharma means that when you make a vow, you stay to it. Vishesha dharma means under exceptional circumstances. Sometimes you need to go outside of that Samanya dharma. One last example, and then I'd like to invite some of you to come up with your dharma sankata, and we can look at that. Many of you are raising grown children, adult children, or you will be raising adult children, or you have raised children who are now adults. There are many complicated situations in families, and especially raising children, and so many situations where parents see very clearly that their children are on the wrong path. And parents, being parents, are desperate to prevent their children from making mistakes that will cause suffering. And you know where this goes, that the adult children are not open to the advice of the parents. The adult children are fully committed to a particular path of action that will somehow or another cause problems, cause suffering. What should a parent do? And again, it depends. Everything depends on the unique circumstances. But one thing that's always true, and this is really important when we're talking about Swadharma, and this will be the last part of my talk, then we'll invite your questions. So the last part is this. Swa so far we're talking mostly about the dharma part. Let's talk a little bit about the swa part, your own. Swa means you are only responsible to do what you can do. You are not responsible for what you can't control. Can I say that again? You are not personally responsible for that over which you have no control. Do you control the lives of your grown children? Certainly not. Therefore, you are not personally responsible for their lives. You are responsible to be a good father or mother. And what being a good father or mother means in a particular situation depends. Sometimes the parents have to be very proactive and very engaged. Sometimes the parents have to be hands-off. It depends entirely on the situation. But the point here is that whatever it is with the adult children, that the parent is not personally responsible for the lives of the grown children. Again, you're responsible to be a good parent. And whatever that means depends on the situation. Whether you should be engaged or whether you should back off depends entirely on the situation. Okay, this is a nice overview of a really complicated topic. And since this is a topic which kind of invites your participation, could you please come and set up the microphone, please? Since this topic really invites your participation, what I'd like to do is to invite any of you who have, if you have something in your life, or if you have a hypothetical situation, just an example that you would like to discuss, then we'll invite you to come up and ask a question. So if you have a question, come up, please, and you'll have to come and stand at the microphone and then ask the question. And actually, if there are several of you, you're welcome to. Yes.
It would just be easier one.
Yeah, one at a time. Okay, please.
Swamiji, in the case of the monk at 10,000 feet and he or she can only survive by eating a yak, they have a choice. They can come down to 5,000 feet where there are vegetables available. So in my view, it is ahimsa.
It is himsa, correct?
It's himsa, right.
Correct. Okay. So again, where you would draw the line is here. Where that monk would draw the line is someplace else. That's the point.
Yeah.
So we all have choice, but the right choice depends on you and your personal situation. That monk living in the monastery has made a vow to follow in the footsteps of Buddha. That monk is part of a monastic order. That monastic order happens to live in that particular monastery. So based on these other contingent factors, if I can use that expression, for that particular monk, eating yaks is Swadharma. The take-home message is, don't live in a monastery at 10,000 feet. Good, thank you. You have a question.
Thank you.
Pranam Swamiji. First is some clarification I want to make. The ahimsa is the first thing for Swadharma, right? The one we need to follow.
It's the main principle, ahimsa.
So the question is, for Arjuna on the battlefield,
Right.
the very first thing that goes big strike is, there is definitely himsa, right? Like he has to fight and then do that. So isn't he violating kind of where he draws the line is something?
That's why I made that comment. I made the comment, but it kind of slips past very quickly. I said it was a situation in which not fighting the war caused more harm than fighting the war. Usually that's not the case. Probably 99% of the time, fighting war is horrible and unnecessary, and certainly the wars that are taking place today, the fighting and killing that's going on in Ukraine and Sudan and Gaza and wherever else these wars are going on, it is all utterly unnecessary and totally unjustifiable, including what's going on in Iran, is morally unjustifiable. But there are times when war is justified. And the greatest modern example is World War II. Most of you know the story. In 1941, the United States was reluctant to enter into World War II because of the experience in World War I, which had been pretty horrible. So the public opinion in the United States was we should not fight World War II. Suppose the United States never engaged. You know the story. Pearl Harbor and all of that. I won't bore you with the history lesson. But suppose the United States never joined the Allies in World War II. Without doubt, Hitler would have won. Mussolini would have continued to rule. And Hirohito and the Japanese regime would have continued. Those regimes would not only have continued, they would have flourished. What would be the harm to mankind if those three fascist regimes went on unhindered? And remember that fascist Germany caused the death, murdered 6 million Jews, and the horrors done in Japan and Italy and elsewhere no less. So I'm defining now what we call a dharma yuddha, a righteous war. And a righteous war is a war specifically in which not to fight the war has worse consequences than fighting the war. World War II was such a war. And if you study the Mahabharata properly, you'll see that the Mahabharata war also was an example of a dharma yuddha. Had Arjuna not fought the war, the Kauravas would have been successful, and the consequences would have been far worse in that situation.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question. Is it
Yeah,
okay
please.
to ask?
You can have a follow. Yes, please.
Thank you. Right now we are big on free will, here. So when we say Swadharma, sometimes we need to take up a job, let us say. Thank you. Yeah. So we might have to pick up a job, take a job, which is not aligned with our will. But as per our Swadharma, we might have to do it, like, for example, to support our family or something like that. So will it be right to say or assume that when it comes to free will or Swadharma, it takes priority, like Swadharma is the one, free will is not something that we need to go?
Actually, yes, but it's not free will, it's desire. Free will and desire are two very different things. In fact, you have to use free will to follow Swadharma. You can use your free will to follow Swadharma. You can use your free will to chase after your selfish desires. So it's not a matter of free will. It's a matter of your selfish interests versus larger interests. So Swadharma means using your free will to follow your Swadharma, which is generally Samanya dharma, the greater interests, and to use your free will not to be confined to your selfish interests. So it's both free will, but it's a matter of Swadharma versus kama, desire. Okay.
Thank you
good,
so much.
Thank you. Good. Another question, please.
Yeah. Swamiji, this is about taking personal responsibility while raising kids. In my family, including myself, and I have heard the comment from family and friends during conversations that when we were raised in India, we grew up, we struggled a lot financially. And here kids get everything ready and they don't know how to handle financial struggles. So that's a concern for most of the parents, but don't you think that is a error on our part during the parenting to when we are raising them to teach them and
What
understand
exactly
the
is the error? What error are you referring to that a Indian family would make, Indian parents would make?
I don't know, but I thought that is a lack in parenting. Like why we feel that. Yeah, like we gave, like for example, when they went to college, we paid for their tuition.
Oh,
when
okay.
Yeah, so they
Okay.
get everything
I
they
get it.
wanted, right?
I get it.
So they don't know how to.
In good American English, you're making it too easy for your kids.
Yes.
I get that. That's good. That's a very common scenario for an Indian family, and when you're growing up in India, chances are financial situations were much more difficult. Parents got educated, created successful lives here in the United States. They're raising their children. Children go to first-rate schools and colleges. They get good jobs, and they do all that without struggling. First of all, it's interesting. Everything, here's just a general observation. To look at a complicated situation like this, you can easily take two positions. One position is we're depriving the children of a chance to build moral character. And the other position is, why would any family want to make their children suffer? And let's just play with this just for a moment. Tell me, if we create these two positions in response to Pinky's question, that parents are making it too easy for their children, parents develop some character by dealing with those hardships as children, so therefore parents should not do everything kind of over the top to make it so easy for their children. So you take one extreme position, or you take the other extreme position that many parents would feel, why? I don't want my children to suffer. I want things to be as good as possible for themselves. Here's the problem in thinking. These are two extreme positions. Generally, extreme positions are unwise. It's not A or B. Or in the computer world, it's 1 or a 0. It's on or it's off. Life isn't made of ones and zeros. Our lives are so rich, which is a good part, and so complex, which is the more challenging part. Definitely, this is a challenging issue that many parents face in life. The answer to that is neither extreme. And just to show the flaws in both of the extreme positions. The extreme position of children should learn the hard way, it'll build character. Maybe they're not suffering financially, struggling financially as you were. They're struggling in lots of other ways. Absolutely. So it's not correct to say that their life is too easy, they're not building character, is a false narrative. That's one extreme. The other extreme of, I want my children to be free from suffering, So therefore, when they turn 21, I'm going to buy them a brand new BMW. I'm I'm going to not only pay all their college expenses, but pay all their living expenses and make sure that they are absolutely debt-free when they graduate from college. There's such a thing as going too far, going over the top, and spoiling the children. So we're examining the extremes. So if you take one extreme, it doesn't work. If you take the other extreme, it doesn't work. So the solution is obviously someplace in between those extremes, and the particular place depends on the family, depends on the parents, depends on the children, depends on 1,000 other things. Depends on the temperaments of the children, depends on the availability of good schools, depends on the economic climate. You can go on and on and on and on. So this is where there's it's all Vishesha dharma. It all depends on the particular situation.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay, good. Okay, if we have time for one or two more questions, please.
Swamiji, last Sunday, you said something very impactful that really, really impacted me, and I've been thinking of it. You spoke about ahimsa based on somebody asked you a question internationally, how do you respond when somebody is hurting you? And you said it's very important to practice ahimsa on yourself.
Yep.
To protect yourself also.
Yep.
So my question here is the discernment of ahimsa, especially on social media. When
Good.
somebody is blasting you.
Good
Because
example.
they're talking to the audience.
Yes.
And your question was based on some kind of a working task, how to solve a working task in the group. But somebody starts blasting you personally, so I did blast back.
Oh.
Okay? Verbally.
Watch out.
I feel very good. And last Sunday when you said, you must practice ahimsa for yourself. So I have been questioning also, should I have just kept quiet? But then I would have suffered emotionally.
Oh.
Now telling the other person,
Good.
I feel very good.
Okay. Good. Thank you. That's an excellent question. By the way, if you don't have a follow-up question, then feel free to go and be seated again. No need to make you stand here in front. That might be uncomfortable for some of you. Thank you for being so open and giving a really pertinent example of an unpleasant interaction on social media. And one thing we know for sure is that people behave very badly on social media. People behave in ways that they would never behave in a face-to-face situation. There's something about the impersonality being removed, by having the internet between you and the other person. It allows people to act out and behave in many absolutely inappropriate ways. So, and you all understand this. So whenever you're on social media, it's inevitable you will come under some kind of attack on social media. It's just the way it works. And I'm not please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's acceptable, I'm not saying it's good. It's just the way it works, and it's unfortunate. So, how to deal with being attacked? Now, you're referring to something I said about ahimsa. Must be applied to yourself as well as others, which means it is adharmic to allow yourself to be hurt again and again and again and again. You have a moral, ethical responsibility to protect yourself. Just like we take care of our bodies, we eat proper diets and all of that to take care of our bodies. In the same way, you have a moral responsibility to take care of yourself emotionally. A little aside here, not your question, but nice opportunity to talk about it. Who's responsible for your physical health? Your doctor? Okay. You are responsible for your physical well-being. Who is responsible for your emotional well-being? Your spouse? Your children? Your parents, if they're still here? You get the point? Okay. You are responsible for your emotional well-being. Now, this is the easy part. Now it gets more complicated. Somebody has abused you online. You have a moral responsibility to protect yourself from harm. The first impulse many, many, many people have is if somebody has attacked you, you attack in response. They call it a attack and counterattack. It's a strategy. Tell me if that approach, being attacked and responding with a counterattack, for the sake of defending yourself from future attacks, how well does that strategy work? Think of it, first of all, look at it in the political sphere. So Palestine and Israel have been involved in this attack and counterattack for decades. Has it worked? Right now, United States and Iran are involved in this attack and counterattack. How well is that working? Ukraine and Russia? The two factions in Sudan? There's the government, and then there's this other group. In general, counterattack, just pragmatically speaking, on a political landscape, counterattacks don't seem to work. Just an observation. If they worked, go for it. But do they really work? So in a political landscape, no. How about social media? Somebody attacks you, you attack them. Does it prevent them from attacking you further? No. Does it prevent other people from attacking you? No. So just very pragmatically, this counterattack is not a useful strategy in most situations. Again, notice I keep qualifying, in most situations. There might be an absolutely unique situation. I don't know what that would be. I can't think of one offhand. It could be, but offhand I can't think. And generally, counterattack is not a very useful strategy. Now, suppose we try to make an argument. And an argument that goes like this. If I don't counterattack, I won't feel good about myself. That's not surprising for someone to feel like that. I have to maintain my sense of value, my sense of worth, my sense of integrity, so therefore I have to defend myself every time I attack, or I won't feel good about myself. In such a situation, there are other ways to feel good about yourself. You can learn how to feel good about yourself without counterattacking. We've already established it's a lousy strategy. It's a lousy strategy that makes you feel better, but it's still a lousy strategy. On the other hand, you should feel good. So if you've been attacked, find another way to feel good instead of counterattacking. And there are so many other ways. Many of you won't agree with me, but I would say if I were on social media and someone attacked me, I just click. You know, they have that garbage basket icon. What does that mean? Trash. Click. No, whatever that message is, click. The message is trashed, and it's over. You don't need to counterattack. And if another message comes, then I think on some different, by the way, I'm not a big, except for YouTube, I don't know anything about social media. But I think there's a thing where you can block people in different medias. So that's another strategy. You just put up that wall, so you I don't know how it works. Anyway, you block them, whatever that's about. So alternate strategies. You have a right, you have a moral responsibility to take care of yourself, and that includes feeling good. But to feel good, counterattacking is not the best way. So find another strategy. Do we have one more question for today? Can you come up? Yeah, please, come. Very good.
Swamiji, regarding this Swadharma description, when we leave the right of choice to individuals to where to strike the line, will it not lead to a very individual chaotic order?
Wow, I love that question. And I'll rephrase it for the benefit of anyone who didn't hear it. When you leave that choice, drawing the line, excellent question, thank you. And we'll make this the last topic for today, last question. When you leave it up to individuals to draw that line, doesn't that, and I'll paraphrase now, doesn't that open the door, so to speak, to some really serious problems? People, if you draw the line at yaks, then why stop there? Why not eat your fellow Buddhists? I'm being absolutely silly, but that just shows, if somebody is really mentally ill in a monastery, who knows? Where does that line get drawn? And just pragmatically speaking, you all recognize that when we leave it to individuals to determine what is right and wrong, doesn't that cause problems? Isn't that why we have laws? We have speed limit laws. Imagine if it was up to everyone's individual determination how fast they can drive and drive safely. It's up to you. As long as you think it's safe, it's fine. It's obvious that kind of approach can cause problems, which is why we have laws, Samanya dharma, which have exceptions. Ambulance drivers don't follow the speed limit. Right? Okay. So we have laws. Laws have exceptions. But now, your question is more nuanced, and especially when it comes to religious life, I think, moral life. Oh, this is such a big topic. I'm going to give it very briefly, but this would be really the stuff for an entire session, and maybe we'll take this up for one session. Let me give the briefest possible explanation. The Hindu tradition is a tradition that doesn't depend on a list of commandments for determining what is right and wrong, what is dharma and adharma. So instead of a list of 10 commandments, we have one principle, the principle of least harm. Arguably, even the commandments have to be interpreted, but generally it's a little bit more cut and dry. Thou shalt not kill. It's kind of hard to misinterpret that, except when it comes to animals. That we won't go there. Thou shalt not steal, etc., in the commandments. For a great number of people, to have a very simplistic system of morality is helpful for a great number of people. For people who need things very, the American expression, cut and dried, black or white, on or off, 1 or 0, yes or no, good or bad. For many people, that's helpful. For people who lack the capacity for discernment of complicated situations. And here's the topic we can't talk about right now. Topic is, our lives are so complicated. If you wanted to have laws and rules for everything, to guide you through your whole life, given how complicated life is, are 10 rules enough? Too complicated. How many rules should we have? Have you ever seen a law library? Huge. And that's just civil and commercial law and criminal law. That's not even morality and ethics. So here's the problem. If we require written laws for all of the complex decisions we have to make, we're going to need thousands and thousands and thousands of laws. We'll struggle with interpreting them. And I agree that there are some people who lack the ability to discern what is the path of least harm. There are some people who aren't very good at drawing that line. This is your point. Absolutely. There are people who are not very skillful in drawing that line, and they draw it in the wrong place, and there are terrible consequences for drawing that line in the wrong place. Such a person lacks the ability to discern the path of least harm. Some people lack the ability to discern the path of least harm. But I would say almost all of you and everyone who's watching this video, you don't lack the ability to discern the path of least harm. You are sensitive enough, you're wise enough, you're smart enough. You have the skill of discernment adequately to figure out for yourself or ask for some advice to discern what is the path of least harm in a really complicated situation. So there's a place for rules, but we have to also recognize the limitations of rules, and then the need for, instead of a list of commandments, and this is the big topic, we can't go there, but I'll just summarize it by saying, it looks to me very strongly that for people who do possess this ability to discern properly, for such people to have lists of commandments seems like a terrible approach as a guide for the complexity of life, where things aren't black and white. Everything is in the gray zone. And a list of commandments, even if there are hundreds of commandments, it's not going to be very workable when dealing with the complexities of life. So I would say for the majority of people, the Hindu approach to morality, which is to have, instead of a list of commandments, to have this principle of least harm foremost. To me, that is, for most people, it is the best approach. For people who are unable to discern correctly, they need laws, commandments, which is why we have laws and commandments. But I think for the vast majority of intelligent, sensitive people, a commandment-based system of ethics and morality is not as helpful as the Hindu approach of ahimsa. These are excellent questions. This was a very nice first session, and I look forward to future sessions. We'll have our usual satsang tomorrow, question and answer at 11 o'clock, and we'll conclude with our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.